Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to today's workshop, Finding Developers Managing HR. My name is Regina Hauser-Boulanger and I work for the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber. In Austria, it's better known as WKÖ. And more precisely, I work for the UBIT. This is the legal representative also of the IT in Austria. First, a few figures. In Austria, at the moment, 24,000 IT experts are missing. This means a loss of value of about 3.8 billion every year. But I'm sure that's not new for you, and that's also the reason why you are in this workshop today. We have 5 great experts in this field that will share their experiences and strategies with us to deal how we deal with this problem. If you have any questions or comments, just post them in the chat. We will discuss them and answer them during the workshop. So let's start with our first speaker, Ben Rushin. He's the founder and investor at Code Capital Holding. Ben's passion is company building. This means founding and scaling up successful startups. He volunteers and an advisory board member of Fit for Internet and Da Vinci Lab, and is a board member of the Austrian Software Industry Association, also better known as FÖSI. Ben was elected to Forbes 30 under 30 list of most successful young entrepreneurs and was named one of the European digital leaders by the World Economic Forum. That's quite impressive. So our first topic is attention employers. Here is how you manage the shortage of IT developers. We are very glad that you share your insights on this topic with us, Ben. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much for the intro. My name is Ben. I've been working with startups and launching companies for the past 10 years, 3 to be precise, that are on the market at current. One of them is We Are Developers, which is one of the largest recruiting platforms for software developers in Europe. The other one is Codeversity, an e-learning platform for IT skills, and the company that has my full attention since the beginning of this year is Founders in Europe. We are a startup accelerator providing founders with a 3-month education to provide them with the skills they need in the very early stage. So we teach them stuff like sales, marketing, product development, super important topic, and the skills that they really need to basically get up to the first €1 million in revenue. And we invest in these startups as well. So we have a fund which does seed investments. So this will give you a little bit of context about where I'm coming from. Before founding Founders in Europe, I spent 4 years building We Are Developers as CEO and co-founder of the company. And what I want to share with you today is not rocket science, but it's basically a strategic perspective on what employers have to do and how they can do it right in order to really manage this, this lack of tech talents and attract the best talents to their companies, as Regina mentioned in the intro. So here we go. I've spent the past years speaking to a lot of people who are multipliers in the tech scene. So I spent a lot of time evangelizing my startup We Are Developers, talking to media executives, talking to tech executives, and trying to transport the best practices that they use in their companies to the old economy. And it's not the first time that I'm holding this presentation, I have to be quite honest. I've spent hours and hours and hours of time evangelizing and trying to help companies ramp up their IT recruiting in order to make it work for them. Because as we see with a lot of tools out there, there are very good ways to be very successful with IT recruiting, but there are some strategic basics that you need to get right. And this is what I want to focus on today. So this is, by the way, a We Are Developers event that we hosted two years ago. So we had 8,000 people at this event, 8,000 software developers. So if anyone asks the question, where can you find developers? You can find them at real life or in times of COVID at virtual conferences. It's one of the best ways to connect with software developers. And it's something I can really recommend. So just a bit of background info. what We Are Developers is, we are a niche platform that allows you to target IT talents directly. So the big benefit that you have when you use a niche platform, and I'm going to introduce a couple more in this presentation, is that you don't target people who are not relevant for you. You exclusively target talents that really match the jobs that you have. So what we developed, we spent several years developing a matching algorithm that really connects the right jobs to the right talents. And of course, we're not the only player on the market. I'll introduce some others. But this is just a bit of context where I'm coming from and what I've spent the last years doing. So yeah, I'm just going to skip this. I spent a lot of time thinking about how to kind of model or visualize the recruiting process and how to visualize what happens when companies do recruiting. And I came up with this model, which is a bit of a copy of a different Harvard Business School model, but from a completely different discipline. And what this shows is that you have a recruiting process. So the recruiting process is effectively, how does recruiting work at your company? How do you generate the flow of talents? How do you communicate with the talents? What happens during the process? Do you challenge them? Do you test them? Do you have assessment centers? Who from your company talks with the talents? Which tools do you use, etc.? And this recruiting process is influenced by a number of factors, which at the end of the day influence your recruiting outcome. So one of these factors is the culture of your organization, something really, really important and top of the agenda if you look at the surveys focusing on the IT and especially software developer target group. The next thing is the structure. How are your teams structured? How is the company structures? What are the processes that you have in place, the routines in the organization that allow your company to function? Also very important because it directly affects the developers who you're seeking to attract. Compensation is a huge topic. So those who are familiar, for example, with the Austrian market will know that our salaries are not particularly high. They're fine if you consider the costs of living, but on an international level, they're not at a very high level. So of course, the compensation, the financial incentives you provide to your developers will influence the whole recruiting process and the outcome. And then we have things like, are you training and educating the people who are in touch with the developers? So is your HR department, if they play a significant role in the communications with the talents, are these people being trained by you? Are they educated? Do they understand the target group that they have to deal with? A lot of the time we see that this is not the case. Then you have behaviors in the market. I'm going to touch on that point. You have the huge topic of C-level mindset. So everybody who's talked to companies and been involved in the topic of IT recruiting knows that unless your C-level has the right mindset, provides the right budget and makes smart decisions that will allow you to act as a modern company, as an attractive employer, everything else is pointless if you don't have the C-level with the right mindset. So this is something I spent a lot of time with because I worked with a bunch of companies where the mindset was not the right one. And then of course you have topics like regulatory constraints. In Austria, we have the topic of the Rot-Weiß-Rot card. So obviously the visa topic is one. I spoke to our federal president this morning about the topic. We had a meeting, and he said it's something we definitely need to work on and bring more flexibility into. And all of these factors impact the recruiting outcome. How many talents you attract? Are you attracting the right talents? Do you have a good brand in the tech talent community? So this already shows it's quite complex, and you need to get a bunch of things right if you want to be successful in IT recruiting. So let's continue here. So market behaviors. I'm sorry this is in German, but I will translate it. So Stripe, the large fintech company, one of the largest in the world, released a study called the Developer Coefficient. And they asked, I think, around 1,000 C-levels, what are the factors that are threatening the survival of your organization? And the interesting thing was that access to developer talents had a higher rank than access to financial capital. So this shows how important developers and access to the right tech talents is for your company. as showcased by the C-levels in this questionnaire. As Regina mentioned before, we currently have 24,000 open IT positions in Austria. In Germany, this is not quite up to date, but I assume we have around something between 150 and 2,000 at the very minimum, because these numbers just keep increasing. And this shows how dramatic the topic is. And one of the main reasons why companies have such a challenge in attracting the right developers is that the target group is very passive. So when we did a survey with We Are Developers, we interviewed 1,000 developers from, I believe, 30 different countries. One of the results was that about 2/3 of the target group are not actively looking for a job, but they're interested in changing the jobs, which means that it's very difficult to get a grasp on developers because they are not visible unless you use the right channels. What this means is that developers do not use traditional job boards. They do not go to career fairs. So the channels we used in the past no longer work for us. And if we look at the fact that 1/3 of the developers are not looking for a job and not interested in a change, this shows us that it's simply not enough to focus on the 11% that are actively seeking a new job. You have to focus on the 2/3 that are not visible but are interested in changing a job. So what are the factors that influence the satisfaction of the Generation Y tech talent target group at work? This is based on our study with 1,000 developers. Number 1, high salary. Number 2, self-fulfillment, fun at work, education and personal development, and the ability to be proud of their own work. So there's a number of factors. These were the top ones mentioned in our survey. And if you look at other surveys, this is the HackerRank developer report, also one of the big surveys. This again showed that work-life balance, again, the topic of education and of course compensation is something that developers focus on when they're looking for new positions. So definitely something you need to take into account when you're working on your culture, working on the structures in your organization, but also communicating with the target group. This is a hiring funnel of a very renowned international fintech company, and it just shows how many developers you need to reach out to in order to hire one. So this was a fintech company. This case is about 2 years old. 500 developers were contacted via email and or LinkedIn. 40 of these recipients replied with their CV. 35 fulfilled the hiring criteria. 30 of the 35 passed the phone interview. 5 of the 30 passed the coding challenge. 3 of the 5 candidates who passed the coding challenge also passed the interview with the hiring team. And 1 of the 3 candidates who got offered a job accepted the job. Now, of course, there's stuff you can automate. You can do, you can automate the LinkedIn outreach and you can automate, the assessments, but it still shows how much work you have to put into hiring one developer if you're very critical with the talents that you're taking onto your team. So C-level mindset, I'm not going to talk too long about this, but you need a CEO who understands the urgency, who understands the target group, who has a good feeling for the target group, and who actually interacts with developers as well. So there's a bunch of names I could drop, but I prefer not to. But this is something really important, and it's a complete deal breaker. No matter how ambitious or smart your HR or your IT department is, if you don't have the C-level commitment and the right mindset, everything else is a waste of your time, in my opinion and in my experience. So another big topic related to this is that recruiting is strategic and long-term. I spoke to a lot of companies when I was actively selling We Are Developers to them, who told me, no, we filled the open positions that we had for this quarter. So it's fine, we don't need to continue talking. And I said, guys, this is a long-term thing. Just because you filled your positions this quarter doesn't mean you can't build a pipeline for the next years. Sometimes it takes months. Sometimes it takes years for a developer to make a career decision, and you need to be there. You need to have an active community. You need to have interacted with these people before you need them. So let's talk about the recruiting process. One of the big mistakes a lot of companies make is they don't source internationally. You can't imagine how many conversations I had with clients who said, why should I focus on Germany? I'm recruiting for Austria. Or why should I focus on the CE region? I'm focusing on the Austrian market. Why should you do this? I think the next figures will give you some insights, because the target group is an international one, and because the willingness to relocate amounts to, according to our study with 1,000 developers, 80% of the target group. So more than 50% said they would relocate for a position abroad, and around 27% said they would like to take a job anyway, even if the circumstances are not optimal. And another 11% said they're already working abroad. So this just shows how willing the IT talent group is to relocate, given the right circumstances. This means don't just source in your local market, source internationally. We have 6 million developers in Europe, just some figures. I talked a little bit about the necessity to educate the recruiters. So what I also always recommend to the companies is have your IT design the recruiting process. You know, the target group has to design the way the target group will be dealt with, the communications, the processes, everything involved in the recruiting. And if you're going to involve the HR, for example, the HR function, then you need to train them, you need to educate them, not just once, but continuously. This happens in some companies, but not in all. It's something that still needs to be learned. And one big topic, and I'll use this as a bit of a closing statement and a recommendation for companies, is reinvent your recruiting strategy. Try out new things. Axel Springer is an example of a company that continues to innovate the recruiting process. There's this amazing video, I don't know if you've seen it before, it's called Media Entrepreneurs. If you Google that, Media Entrepreneurs plus Axel Springer, you'll see a very cool campaign. I think it was 10 years ago, but they were one of the first to try out something as eye-catching and disruptive as this. Axel Springer used this guy, for example, Dat Tran, who acted as their evangelist. He was their head of AI, and he was speaking at lots of different international conferences. So using developer evangelists, creating compelling content is something I definitely recommend. This is an interesting example because it's an example of a company that's not exactly had very positive media coverage in the last months. It's Novomatic, so they're a gaming company. But what they did, and it was very smart, is they launched an entire academy. They called it the Corporate Coding Academy, without their logo in it. And they used this campaign to build up their pipeline and make a huge funnel out of a kind of educational program in order to attract developers. And ever since then, they've just had an ongoing flow of new talents. So this was definitely something kind of pioneering for the German-speaking market, I would say, because it was an unprecedented effort to really attract a lot of developers. So I hope I could give you some insights and pave the road for Michael and for the others who will be speaking after me. I have a bunch of more slides, so I'm happy to, if you have any questions, contact me, connect with me on LinkedIn, send me messages, happy to give you more inputs. But I don't want to steal the others' time, so I'm just gonna allow Regina to take over and continue with the other speakers. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Ben, for your speech. And now we are turning to our next speaker, Michael Ionita. He studied at the Technical University of Vienna. So he has a technical background as a developer. And his first company was the Real Life Connect Ltd. It's an IoT company with production in Hong Kong. Then he had the leadership of tech and product at GM Mobfox, a mobile advertising company. And after that, at CTO Wallis.io. And as you could imagine, a lot of developers were needed in these both companies. And now he's the founder and CEO at Founders in Europe. They are providing education, community, and funding all in one place. He will tell us now how to recruit IT professionals effectively. He promises a game-changing 15 minutes. So I'm very curious of your secret.
All right, thank you very much, Regina. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I will share my screen and just double checking if it looks fine, and then I will start. All right. So yeah, I have 15 minutes, so let's do it. I hope it's game changing for you. So strap in. So quickly, who I am and what I have been doing in my past, 15 years or 10 years in this case, because I disregard the university time. So I will do it in 2 minutes, so you understand where I come from and why I can talk about hiring at all. And I will be pretty quick on this section because it's just about creating some context on who I am. So yeah, strap in. I will be pretty fast. So yes, I created a company. Real Life Connect was my first startup. And we did NFC RFID products, so software and hardware. We produced them in Hong Kong and in Shenzhen, actually in China. So it was a hell of a ride because it was a physical startup, not only software, right? So it was another challenge there. So yeah, we had all of this stuff at the office. We had to put it in the warehouse and everything. But of course, we had to have developers that understand hardware and software. That was very interesting. We had our physical stations all over the world. You can see it here on a very old screenshot of Google Maps. Those are our IP addresses of our stations. So that was pretty cool. Imagine our developers and also the other people, obviously in the company, being very proud of ourselves, having all these stations all over the world, actually producing something for events. That was really cool. And Mobfox was a programmatic advertising company where we had 1 billion requests per hour, 1 billion, right? It's a milliarde in German, so it's a lot of requests. So we had to have awesome developers to take care of all of this traffic. So we had 1.5 developers when I came in, which is not a lot, for this kind of traffic. And then we grew to 28, which is great. So, and also we grew the revenue from 12 million to 40 million. So you can see it's a very effective tech team, right? Not 100 developers, not needed. 28, $40 million. Not a bad, I think it was not a bad ratio here. And then I went over to Walsall, rebuilding tech team. So I was hiring basically all the time, right? I was hiring tech people all the time. And finally, just because I wanted to plug it in there, I have a YouTube channel. You can go and check me out. I'm talking about no code. And now I'm doing Founders in Europe, but thank you. You already mentioned that, so I'm happy. And as I said, I'm going pretty quickly through this so that you see that I was hiring tech people from the early stages when I created my startup, but also for bigger corporations that made $40 million or more in annual revenue. And so I saw basically the whole spectrum of if you're a small company or if you're a big company, what do you need and how do you hire actually? Okay, so but back to IT hiring, IT professionals, right? I think we have to think about the psychology of IT personnel. I will call them developers most of the time, but of course they don't have to be specific developers. They can also be IT in other sense. But I think we have to look at the psychology of these people, right? Because we're humans after all, for now. Okay, so even though some people maybe see like developers as coding monkeys, I don't think that happens anymore, but all of us have feelings. We have to take care of them. And when I say we, I'm also a developer, so I will feel like I will talk to myself here, address my own needs, right? Because I'm also a developer. So we're not coding monkeys. We have feelings, and also monkeys have feelings, but we have feelings. We have to take care of them. So what do developers really want? Okay, and what are the most important things we have to take care of? And I will then tell you at the end why this is super important. So developers like other developers. Okay, and the reason for that is pretty simple, because they can share knowledge. And why is that important? Is because developers are always afraid of missing trends, because technology is moving faster every year. There is more, cool things coming out. You have machine learning coming out, crypto coming out. You have AI coming out, right? They're always feeling like they're missing something if they cannot share knowledge with other people. And so instead of having to learn everything themselves, they like to have other developers next to them who are smart to share some knowledge, right, from each other. And that's really important. Okay, so I will come to that later on, why this is very, very key. And they don't feel alone, right? So if the management comes with a big challenge, which is actually great, they love challenge, but they don't want to do it alone. It's a bit weird, right? So they love other developers, right? So if they're the first developer, it should be better, depends on your company size, it should be better to be some leader, right? A leadership kind of personality, right? But every other person should get to know this leader, and I will get to that because leadership is super important. But you don't want to hire a developer into your company as the first developer if it's not a leader personality, because it would be alone and that person will feel pretty lonely and not really perform well. So developers are constant learners. It says down there very small. So what does it mean for you? Okay, it means that you need to have tech leaders, and they have to be magnetic. So I don't have a lot of time to go into proving all of this quickly, but trust me, okay? Your tech leadership has to be super good, right? 1 or 2 people, depends on your company size, has to be magnetic in the sense that they can communicate well, they are approachable, they are part of the hiring process, they inspire people when they talk to them, right? So it's very important. With those people, you can attract developers. The tech challenges should be exciting that you are providing them, right? Because they are problem solvers, right? So they want to solve some bigger issue. And you should have a culture of knowledge sharing, right? So allow them to share knowledge, right? Make it possible. Allow them to allocate time for giving knowledge to other colleagues. Okay, that's super important. Okay, next one. Psychology of developers. We're still in there, right? Developers like to be alone. Not always, but you might have noticed that your development team is super happy to work from remote, from home, right? They are maybe the only department that is super happy right now. And this is because they like that, because they can do deep work. They can think, right? They can spend time thinking without getting so much distraction. And they can use it as a learning opportunity. They can learn some stuff instead of commuting back and forth, right, to the office. They use the time to learn some new things. Like I said before, they really love to gather new knowledge. And they have less distractions. So if they do it right, they can be even more effective because they don't have to, get back from the distraction and focus back on what they were doing before. They are more focused on it. So actually, that's a good thing. And that's why developers were asking you all the time before Corona, can I work from home? Can I have a day to work from home, right? Because they already had the feeling that this makes sense. Now it was a must. Now we see it actually works fine. So developers are thinkers. You can think about them as people that need room to think because they constantly have to solve things that are new. They're not always solving the same things, right? So they have to think about how to do that. Then what does it mean for you? It means that it would be awesome if you allow remote work also after COVID. I'm just saying, I think that's very effective. Again, it depends on your situation, but I think overall what I have seen is it's pretty effective. Trust them that even if they're at home, they will work. They will not slack or waste their time. Trust them. Otherwise, why did you hire them, right? And create a culture that is less distractive. So let them work longer hours at a time, right? So even if you have Slack or I don't know, whatever you have for chatting, make sure you're not overwhelming people with constant updates or notifications or stuff like that. Make sure they turn off notifications if they really want to work, or this is even possible, right? Depends on your company processes, but I think it would be awesome to allow that for developers, maybe also for other jobs, but I'm talking about developers today. And the last thing about psychology is what developers really want, right? What do they really care about? So, okay, they care about what your company does, okay? But don't overestimate it. They do, obviously, they like it, but what they care a bit more is actually who they work with, okay? They care a lot who they work with. That's very attractive, very magnetic. That's why I will mention tech leadership a lot today. And which challenges they have to solve for you, tech challenges, of course, they have to be interesting, right? They want to be able to talk to other people about this. Hey, I did this crazy stuff, we had this issue. It was so cool, and we did this and that, right? So they want to be proud of what they're doing there. And obviously, which technology they're using. So if they have to use, assembler, okay, maybe some people like that. Most people don't. It's a bit boring, right? But they want to use newest technologies if possible. So that's why there is tech leadership needed to be even able to allow them to use new technologies, even if your industry has all the tech, but you can use modular architecture in order to allow new technologies as well, and thus attract some talent into your company. And of course, they care about money as well. So don't get me wrong, they care about all of this, but to be honest, in the hiring process, they will ask you about your company and all this stuff because they don't know what else to ask. But once they are in your company, they will care much more about the technical challenges and who they work with, and much less about what you're actually doing with your business. It's crazy, but this is how it is. Okay, so what can you learn from this? You have to have a very strong tech leader, like really strong, either CTO, head of, whatever, but it has to be a super strong person that is attractive and interesting and inspiring. That's key, really key for hiring and being effective. You have to embrace at least using modern technologies, and modular architecture will help you with that. Again, a tech leader will be able to explain or make it happen, right, for your industry, for your company. And yeah, provide tech challenges that are worth solving, of course, right? I mean, of course. Okay, so back to how to hire effectively. So why did I tell you this stuff? Okay, I told you because you have to you have to make them excited about all the stuff I just mentioned before in your entire hiring process. Okay, so if you start approaching a developer, writing email or something, or approaching them on whatever platform, then don't just say, hey, we have a cool job, you know, you have to talk about the things I just mentioned already there, right? Or always drop something in there that is one of the psychological things they really care about. Drop it in there. Hey, we have super cool challenges, this technology. Hey, we have very exciting team members, those people, right? Check it out, right? So make it a bit more interesting for them based on what they really care about. So I even think that the first email should contain something about the technical challenges you're solving. So when I was hiring and I was writing emails, let's say on Honeypot or, you know, Stack Overflow or LinkedIn or whatever, I was always including what am I actually trying to solve right now with my company? What is the bigger problem, right, that we're trying to solve technically? And they were super excited because they are like, oh, cool, you're trying to do real-time reporting on 1 billion data sets per second. Okay, that's crazy. Let's talk about it, right? So instead of saying, hey, we have a new job, it's a new opportunity, and you have this amount of money, they don't care. What they care about is technical challenges. So this worked great. It worked awesome. But of course, in order to write this text, you need to have someone to help you put the words together because it's technical speak, right? That's why technical leadership, super important. Even if you want to be ultra cool, you can add links to people they will work with, like LinkedIn profiles. Look, those will be your colleagues. Check them out, right? So be proactive because they care who they work with, right? Because we heard that before. So make sure you put that into your communication early on. I think you should also include technical people who are excited about their work in your interview process. Sounds logical, but you know, so like you get the tech leader, right? That would be awesome. Or some employees that are really excited about what they're doing. They are tech people, and put them into the interview. Make them give their excitement to the interviewee that you have in front of you. So that would be really smart. And I mean, go ahead and approach developers proactively. Don't wait for them to click on your job ad, obviously. And when you do that, I kind of mentioned it before, make sure you don't just write a, you know, standard text. Instead, put some technical challenges, show them what they will be working on early on, short texts. They don't care to read, you know, a lot of text, right? Nobody does. So that would give you much better chances of actually people answering your messages. All right. How much time do I have? I still have, oh, perfect. 3 more things. So instead of, you know, 1 more thing like Steve Jobs, I have 3 more things. Okay, it's a bit much, but here you go. I think pretty similar to what Ben Rushin was saying before, and I will make it even more clear or be more precise on it, because I'm actually saying that your IT hiring should be led by your IT, not by your HR, right? Because all the stuff I mentioned before is really hard to do for HR, because how do you write these things? You don't know what to put in there, right? Of course, you can collaborate, it's all great, but really, when I say game changing, I mean game changing, okay? So if your IT hiring is led by your IT, by your tech lead, right? This was so important to have a good tech lead. It's so much easier to hire, it's crazy. And so writing job offers, right, should not come from HR, it should come from IT, okay? With the words, with the crazy text developers write in there, you cannot imagine how many characters you can put in there that only developers understand. It's like that, yeah. Then defining the hiring process, which steps actually exist in this hiring process, IT should decide that, okay. Define interview questions, also IT should decide which questions to ask those. Okay, sure, there might be a personality check, fine, but everything else should be defined by IT. And the first contact should be an IT person, okay, because everyone else is using HR or non-IT, let's say, right? But if you are using tech people, you are special, right? Ooh, cool. Some IT person contacted me. That's something else, right? So they will like that. So it's really just kind of logical if you think about it. And this is why it's so important to have a strong tech lead, CTO, head of, whatever you have there, depends on your size. And this person has to be really good at talking to people and magnetic in the sense that, you know, inspiring, knowledgeable, approachable, right? Because those people will attract developers for you, not you. They will do that because they talk to those people, not your company. Those people, right, talk to your future developers. So this leadership is so key. It's really crazy. Okay, then the last thing I want to mention in the last 20 seconds I have is basically is a game-changing interview that I'm doing, and I want to propose that one of your interview steps should be a role play interview where basically you become a team together with the interviewee. And instead of just asking Q&A, you just put a question and a problem in front of you, and you solve it together like you already have hired this person, right? Imagine you already work together and you just want to solve this problem that is in front of you. And this is so easy and is so effective that basically once I have started using this model, I have never ever since then have to fire anyone because that person didn't fit into the team or didn't have the skills, right? So this role-playing interview is basically so easy to implement. You basically put a piece of paper or you use Miro.com because you do remote interviews, and you ask the candidate to become a team with you, and you just solve this problem together. And I want to jump to the example here. We're creating a game, right? The tic-tac-toe game, right? And the question I ask is like, how do we create a tic-tac-toe, a digital version, so people can play against each other? And then I'm just saying, okay, how can we approach this? How can we approach it? Not you, we, okay? And can you draw it? Can you explain what you mean, right? Which technologies would we use together, right, in order to make this happen? So instead of being the interviewer, you are just a team together, right? What is the architecture we will use? How do you scale this to 1 million users? And stuff like that. And then you come up with some kind of diagram. And why all of this? Just because you figure out, can you teamwork with this person? Does this person, can they communicate with you? Do they fit into your culture? Because you have this exchange, right? Like in real life, and you will see immediately if this person can explain things, if they fit into what you believe they should fit into, instead of just having, standard question and answer. And you see if they have the knowledge, right, to even answer this question. Obviously, part of this interview should be a tech person, that's clear, but it's so effective, it's absolutely crazy. So yeah, 100% hiring success using this method, all of the stuff that I told you before. I know it was pretty fast. And I want to mention that if you want to have this whole presentation, just hit me up on Twitter and I will send it to you. So you don't have to remember all of these things. But basically the takeaways are these. And this is my Twitter on the bottom @Mitzi. Talk to you there.
Thanks a lot, Michael. This was for your really great ideas. So now you mentioned already the HR process, and now we will look on the HR, a few of things. And Nina Eichinger is head of talent team and culture at Celum. Celum is a leading global cloud software provider for file management and transparent collaboration of marketing teams. They have over 100 employees in Linz, Vienna, and Munich who work daily for over 900 customers from a wide range of industries. So Nina, you gained a lot of experiences in different fast-growing companies, also at Big Panda, if I remember correctly. And what would you like to tell us? What would you like to share with us and the audience about IT recruiting in such very fast-growing companies?
Hi, thank you very much for the intro. Let me quickly share my screen. Does it work? Yeah. I want to talk today about IT recruiting in fast-growing companies. It was very great what already Ben and Michael mentioned. I think I will complement that from the HR perspective, even though Michael said, yeah, HR shouldn't be involved or just help out. But I think I can also share some tips and tricks that I've gained. But maybe let's start with who am I and why would I know? My name is Nina Eichinger, as already mentioned by Regina. My background is in very fast-growing companies. I've started my career at Spock, where I started as the 7th employee and helped them grow until 140. Then I joined Bitpanda, where I joined at 25 people and helped them grow to 350. And now, since very recently, I've joined Celum, and we now also want to grow a lot. And so as you can see, I have a lot of experience in scaling teams, still hiring a lot of people, and also set up HR. So the challenges I always was facing was that, the company was very small or medium-sized, and this also involves that the brand is not known. Maybe they know the company brand, but not really you as an employer. At Spock, for example, I was, when we were 50 people, I was talking to an applicant and the person was like, yeah, so you're 2 people, right? Like one, like you HR, and then one developing the product. And where I explained to the person, no, we're 50 people, he couldn't really imagine. So you also should always work on your employer brand, not just your company brand. We are all faced with the shortage of developers, as we already heard. Usually when you're still small, you have also little budget and also no tools in place that help you facilitate everything. So first thing I always do is I look at the brand awareness and try to set up a cool brand where people want to work with. As Michael also already mentioned, people are interested in whom they are working with. They want to know who are the people that I work on a day-to-day basis, especially also show the great tech talent in your team. So for example, when we go to conferences, I always send the best speakers, the best people that you can learn from, because the developers, they want to grow. They want to see how they can develop their career. So you should also always focus on the latest tech stack, because yes, it's sometimes easier to find people that have worked with a super old version of Java, because it's been there for longer. But people at some point leave your company because they can't develop anymore, because they can't learn anymore. And this is also something that Ben mentioned from these studies that there were done, that people seek for education. They want to have personal development. They want to have self-fulfillment. So they also want to work with people they can learn from. In general, you should work on your brand awareness, spread the word, show the people how an awesome bunch of people you are. So some things I did with my previous companies, for example, at Spock, we did this mannequin challenge where we just said, okay, let's have fun together. We filmed this. And then we put it on social media. And since we didn't have any employer branding videos or anything in place, we said, okay, let's just also put it on our careers page. From that moment on, each and every single applicant talked in the interview process about this, because they said it's such a great way to see your team, to see the office and so on. And it's not always the obvious things that attract people. It's more like standing out from the crowd. And this is also something that we did with Bitpanda, where we had this super talented copywriter who always wrote us these fun ads that I have shown here in the bottom. These really gained a lot of attention. They got shared a lot. And they also got shared by our internal teams. So we also got a lot of referrals, which is also very great. And something that is also really important about brand awareness is that you shouldn't lie. You should always be just show what is real. So you shouldn't talk about work-life balance if you're working 60 hours per week, but just be true, show how it is, and tell the people how awesome it is, as I already said. Second thing, of course, very important, are job ads. You shouldn't overload them. Like what I've also seen in the past was that if you check out job ads, they are super long with a lot of words in it. No one wants to read into this. You want to open this, see at one glance, what is this position about? What tools am I working with? What do they expect from me? Something, maybe a story that I can also tell you at Bitpanda, we in the beginning, we had this problem that we had a very low female to male ratio. So we had around 15%, and then my colleague, she did some research, and then she found out that a lot of females, they scare away from super long job ads. They scare away if they don't meet all the criteria. So what we did is we tried out a few things, and one of them was also that we said we cut all our job ads. We just focus on the very important things and have 5 bullet points maximum. And all of a sudden, our team or female to male ratio grew to 25%. I don't know if that's really related to this, but also maybe a good coincidence. Then when I joined Silom just lately, Google for Job was also launched. So in Austria, this just got launched recently. I was super excited about it because I love to play around with those things. And so I typed in front-end developer in Linz, wanted to check out where Silom is, found out I can't find it. I was scrolling, couldn't find it. So then I was doing some detective work, and I found out, okay, we're not using once the word developer in our job ad, where I was like, okay, that's the most obvious thing. And so what we also always do now is that we play a little bit of buzzword bingo, how I call it, where we check out not just how would we phrase it or which fancy job title would we like to use, but more like how the people search for jobs. That's not just for developers, that's for every that's true for every single job. Yeah, so you should always try to think in the way of the applicant and how they would look for jobs. And as we already also heard before, most of the people, they don't apply actively. They are more in a passive position where they maybe are open for a change, but yeah, not really actively looking, especially also because they already get contacted a lot by other companies, and they usually have like at least 3 open offers at once on their table. So what you should also do is get out, get active. We already heard a lot of tips from Michael on this, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. But one thing that is very important, I think, to mention is that you shouldn't accept no's. You will get a lot, but be persistent. Maybe they are not interested now, but keep contacting them. You planted a seed, and at some point they will be like, okay, maybe you're really a cool company, so let's try this out, or at least have a chat. And with all those people they apply to you, and with all those people you contacted, you can easily also build your own talent database. That's one of the very obvious things that usually companies don't do, and where, for example, people that applied now and are too junior, for example, for you now, they develop. So within 2 years, for example, they maybe are a very good fit to your company. So you should have them still in the talent database and can contact them then afterwards. Yeah, and of course, as this is all a lot of work, we usually also have get some help from good agencies. I usually have 2 or 3 on the side, which I work with. Not too many. Not everyone should work on the same positions. Obvious reasons again. Okay, so that's about job ads. Now let's talk about the recruitment process. One thing that I also learned in the past was that you should never trust a CV. It's either like, or there are 2 extremes, let's say. It's either like super fancy and you think it's the king of the world. And then there's the other extreme where it's like a person that can't write a CV and you would reject them straight away. Don't focus on that. So what I do is having a quick call with them and then test them. Because with this, the people that are the king of the world, they get back on their places, and maybe you find some gems for people that don't know how to write CVs, because it's not their day-to-day job. They can code. This is what they can do. So yeah. Anyways, if you don't do it in the beginning, at some point in the recruitment process, you should do the testing, because that's also something that I heard in the past from developers, where they said they had offers from companies. They just made them offers straight away without testing them. They didn't know how real life coding challenges in the company are, and so they weren't interested then in the company. So testing is definitely an important step in the process, but most important thing at all is to have a very slim and fast process. The people, they are available for a very short time frame, usually like maximum 2 weeks, maybe most probably even shorter. So if you wait 2 weeks until you send first invite, then you're most probably already too late and someone else was faster and catch the person from you. And another thing that I can recommend is having a proper applicant tracking system in place, because that speeds up the process a lot and helps you keeping track of everything, and also helps you building the talent database and everything. Yeah, that was some insights from me as an HR perspective. In general, I hope I showed you that recruiting and in general also HR is no side job. You should be active, you should spread the word, but at the same time stay true, don't make false promises. And also something very important is that you should stay persistent. Maybe if it doesn't work out now, don't give up. The people there, maybe your future employees. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nina, a lot for your presentation. Now we have one question for Nina from the audience, and it's about how do you deal with the GDPR when it comes to the talent database and contacting the people later? How do you deal with this in your process?
Usually I always ask them if it's okay for them if I keep them in the database, because yeah, it's not allowed to just store them without them having their acceptance to that, of course.
Okay, thanks a lot. So, and now we are coming to the next point. It's our discussion, and we are glad that Rudi Bauer from We Are Developers, we heard already about it, Ben mentioned it, is joining us, and also Grégoire Besnier from 42 Vienna. So maybe let's start with Grégoire Besnier. So what is your project or your solution to the shortage of IT developers or experts, please?
Yes, thank you for the question. I'm sorry I speak French even in English, but just to present 42, it is a special high school created in 2013 in France by one of the most active entrepreneurs of France. And the target is to provide the best possible developers to the companies. So it means the school 42 always look for excellence and for an education and training being at the level of a master in informatics. But many students leave us before the end of the study because they find recruiters like you. But I think the most important thing is to understand 42 is a great disruption in pedagogy. For instance, we don't have any teachers, and also, we have no mentor or coach and so on. Everything is in an intranet, and people are working project-oriented. So we have 200 projects to be done in a context of gamification. And I was interesting to hear Michael saying that developers need to be alone because it's not our approach. Our approach is exactly the contrary. It's true that part of the time has to be alone, but the concept of 42 lead on collaborative work, peer-to-peer learning and peer-to-peer evaluation. That means you don't have teacher, but your peers in a project will evaluate you and give you some points regarding what you provide as solution. And I spoke with different people having done this process, and it is not so easy because they told me they could have a bad evaluation, and then they had to find again why is that false and how they can do it better. So we have a very strong group dynamic in 42. How long can I speak? Because
yeah, I think a quick introduction is fine, and then maybe
okay.
we can discuss more after. Yeah.
So you mean
two more sentences?
Yeah, no, I mean, just an important point. In France, we have Grande École process, so Elite-Schulen haben wir. And the point is that a high school has a very tough selection process. And we selection people not with their academical background. You just have to give your name, forename. You have to be 18 and you can be also 67. And then you go through selection process, which is very nice. It is called la piscine, so the swimming pool. So you swim during 1 month, during 7 hours for a day. So you swim a lot in the world of development, etc. And if you try to get solutions alone, you will lose. So you will not be accepted. You cannot solve the problem. So people understand after the first 10 minutes that they have to cooperate with other people and to help each other. So that's one of the key of our pedagogy. And the target, and then I have finished, is to found in July, I hope, 42 Vienna with 100 students. They will first go through the swimming pool, 300 maybe, or 400 or more. And then we take the best 100 people. And the last point is that in the selection, at the end of the day, we have people who never think to be a developer, and in the digital domain, 40% of these people have no academic diploma and have left school system, and they go back through the selection process, and then they can become one of the best developers of the world. But we have also academic people who like swimming. And 27% of women And with me, I would like to have 50%.
It sounds very interesting, and in France, it's very successful, and I'm sure in Vienna, it will be the same. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
And so now, Rudi Bauer, you are from We Are Developers. What would you like to share with our audience today?
I think there was a lot of issues already mentioned, and I fully agree what Michael and Ben and also Nina and Gregor shared with us. And I think we are in specific times and we need specific solutions. What's important for me, and my history is I was managing director of Stepstone Austria for the last 7 years, and then two of these years in parallel, I was also chief evangelist for Stepstone worldwide. So I was traveling a lot and had a lot of conferences, had a lot of chances to really talk to people about what's happening on the markets and what's going on. And I think what we see in developer segment is maybe just the first sign what happens in all the other areas as well, because if you look at population pyramids and socio-demographic developments, this will appear in all the other business areas as well. So I think what happened is that the market has changed in a way that the candidates are coming into the strong positions, and we have to take care that we grab their attention, that we take care of what they really like and what they need. And I think the specific in this environment, and maybe it started with the developer segment, is that at the end of the day, we are having 5 generations of people in the labor markets, and we never had that before. And I think what we have to learn is we have to learn to speak their languages. And I think that's the most important issues. And what I really enjoyed is when Nina said that she doesn't want to read CVs, she wants to talk to people, because I think that's really becoming important. Yeah? It's not a question of having fully automatized processes dealing with the mechanics. It's more talking to the people, create the curiosity, get their passion and get their willingness to work. And I think that is also what happened with employer branding. When I started at Stepstone, employer branding was really booming, and it was a starting phase of employer branding, and everybody tried to be as cool as Google. And everybody was making cool, nice videos with the campus and the fruit basket and the coffee machine and all this kind of stuff. And I think this is boring for people because they don't like it. And honestly, if you look on all these benefits discussions we are playing around with, at the end of the day, it's all the rational half of our brain. Yeah? It's addressing the rational half, because if I'm offering you a fruit basket with 3 different kind of fruits and the neighbor company is offering 4, they have a big advantage. And it's the same with the coffee machine. It's the same with the Kick and the PlayStation. If we have the PlayStation 5 already and company beside us has only the 4, I think we have the advantage. I think it doesn't make sense to play around with this kind of stuff. So it really means dealing with the people, dealing with their needs. And I think it's very dangerous to put all the developers in one basket and have kind of one picture what they are. They are not the people sitting at home alone and like to be alone. I think there's some of them are really enjoying working in teams, or the most of them are enjoying working in team. I think it's the trust and giving them the flexibility to decide on their own, to bring in their ideas, to work as they like to work, to make it as comfortable. And I think it has also to do, if I have kids and family, I maybe enjoy, and Corona has shown that I maybe enjoy to go to the office because it's more quiet maybe than at home with 3 kids. Yeah, but I think it's more the trust and this freedom that we give to the people to bring in their ideas, to take the decisions themselves, and to build it up as they like to have it. And I think that's the important thing. Yeah, and the rest, I fully agree to what the previous speakers mentioned. I think there was a lot of good inputs and ideas and expertise in it. But that is what I want to raise, because I think it's dangerous to group people belonging on their birth dates. I mean, it's the same if you do it for sport cars. Yeah. Not the one from the 60s are the better ones, and from the 80s are the better ones. I think it's people are totally different, and it really depends on what they need, what they like, and to give them the freedom and the trust and get rid of control. I think these control mechanisms, I think they really should disappear, because I think we are living in as Gregor said, in extremely complex time, nobody can solve it alone. Yeah, I think you have to solve it in teams, and therefore you need a kind of course of this freedom and flexibility, and that's missing. I think it's a leadership problem more than a recruiting problem.
Can I just comment what you said? Flexibility is for us also very important. It means that people can become developers after 1.5 years or 5 years. So they can choose the way they want to go on. And at the middle, we have people having a master in 3 years. But they get this flexibility, and the school is open 24 hours a day. So we have people who work in the night, yes, because they are more quiet and motivated than during the day. Yeah.
That's the freedom of choice I meant. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. But another point I found interesting in the first presentation is to say we have to recruit internationally and not just in the local market where we are. Yeah? In the School 42, we have 36 campuses worldwide with 12,000 students, and people can recruit for Vienna, students living in Brasilia or in Tokyo and so on. Yeah? So it's very mobile also.
I see, thank you. So do we have more questions from the audience or from the speakers? Would you like to ask one another a question? Otherwise, I have one. So, because I think Ben mentioned it in the beginning, the 2/3 of the IT experts are not actively searching for a job, but they would be ready to change. But you don't reach them through typical platforms, but how do you reach them? Where do you find them?
May I try to give an answer on that?
Woody, please.
I think that's I always call it the dilemma of reason why. And I think that's the dilemma that we are having on traditional ways we would like to recruit. I think the dilemma why is from my point of view, the explanation is that companies are trying to fill an open position, which I fully understand because it costs money. It's extremely intensive process to fill this position. And therefore we always try to place a job at somewhere to fill an open position. And candidates and developers especially are not joining a platform because of looking for a job. And that one looking for a job actively are not the best ones, because normally if you are a good developer, you need not actively look for a job. I mean, it could have a reason, and of course that's normal as well. But I think that's the dilemma, and therefore you need to, and that is why we developers try to approach it directly from the opposite side. So we build the content and we try to grab the attention of the developers by delivering content they really like, and to make it a place where they love to be, and where they can educate themselves, where they can meet people, where they can have a kind of interesting exchange of ideas, and then to bring the companies as far as possible towards that stages. So I always call it's like a window shopping, or the shopping window along a street, a shopping street. If you're not able as a company to present yourself in a moderate way, it's terrible difficult to grab the attention of the developers. And I think that is this dilemma, and we have to find a common solution for this dilemma. And I think that's the difficult task in that whole game. But that's the issue, because they are not actively looking. I think that's a big difference between developers at the moment and maybe other job areas where people are still actively looking for job, but at the developers, it's definitely not the case. But the rest of I think people are people and humans are humans, and the behaviors and I think that the needs are the same. But that's maybe the biggest difference between these two groups, developers and other people for other job areas.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from the audience, and the question is, recruiting is important, but how about the retention of employees? Can you also briefly address this topic? Who would like to say a few words on this, Michael?
Yeah, I would love to add to that. So retention kind of was touched in my super fast presentation, is basically give them something challenging to work on, something they really care about working on, technically challenging, I mean, and also let them use technologies that are modern. Sure, you cannot go nuts, right? Because you have your stack, but still allow experiments, allow a service-oriented architecture where they can create new modules in a new technology, right? If the tech lead is okay with that, and that will keep them interested, okay? Because they don't want to miss the train. They don't want to have the feeling that, let's say they're 5 years in your company, and then they read all this good stuff on the internet, but they never really have time to play with this, right? To try it out, because they are so busy at work, they're busy at home, right? So it creates this feeling of being stuck, being left in the back, right? So that's an important thing. And also I want to reiterate how important it is to have good technical leadership, because that is very attractive, to be honest, right? People come because of other people, right? And that can keep them around a lot and create this this connection.
Thank you. Now we have more questions from the audience. Thank you. So the next question is, how can we address the topic of convincing our employees in becoming brand ambassadors for our company? Who would like to answer this question? Any experiences? Ben? Or maybe first Nina and then Ben, please.
There is not really a way to find out, or like, let's phrase it differently. So usually you don't know who is very good at speaking, and they also don't know it from themselves. So what I always did, and what worked out really well, is that we did internal like TED Talks and so on. And with this, people found out that they actually really like presenting stuff. They like to talk about things they're interested in. And so with this, we found out also who is a good speaker. And then usually we also trained them. And then they like to present in the company to the outside. So this is how I did it in the past, but maybe Ben has some other things to share.
I mean, the companies that I work with who used developer evangelists, they obviously tried to identify the developers in their teams who have a natural predisposition to communicate on stage, who are not afraid to present in front of a lot of people, because obviously the goal is to reach a lot of people and speak at large conferences, speak at large virtual events. But they also provided a lot of training. And one of the topics that the companies had at times when they were launching their evangelism programs was that the developers who were acting as evangelists, they had to spend time evangelizing, and this time was lost developing. So a lot of the cases that we accompanied were developers who took on a full evangelist role, who were no longer, developing actively, and basically spent all of their time traveling. If you look at, for example, at just reading the chat, sorry. If you look, for example, at the guy I mentioned from Axel Springer, yeah, he was officially the head of AI, head of artificial intelligence. But when you actually spoke to them, it became clear that yes, he does AI projects, but he's no longer really operational in the IT of the company. His main role is evangelizing and, obviously coding for the purpose of evangelism and no longer for the purpose of developing the software of the company. But Michael, maybe you also have something to add to this.
Yeah, I wanna mention that I agree. Like, let them speak at an event. So, for example, before COVID and everything, there was a massive event from we are developers. We have two people here in the room, and two of my developers were speaking actually at that event, and they were super excited at the beginning. Were super not excited, like they were afraid, yes. But but then we worked together. Technical leadership, important, yes. We worked together on the presentation. I think they did like 3 iterations on the presentation. Of course, it was awful at the beginning, not the best presenters, right? But once you helped them, right, and they got super excited, and after it was over, and they did a great job, by the way. They were actually happy that they had this opportunity. There was a video, they could see themselves on YouTube. That was really nice. So maybe we developers will create more events like this in the future. God knows if you're allowed to. All right, and it's a great way to participate in these events and put your your great developers, the ones that can speak tiny bit better than the others. Put them there. They will love that, and help them to make good presentations. They will love you for that. And so what you have done with this is basically you have elevated their skills, which is what they want.
Thank you. And now another question. Is it better to try to improve an employee or to change him rapidly and hire an improved one? What are your experiences on this? Who would like to answer? Rudi, please.
I normally like to develop people because I think it's easier to get people willing to learn something than always trying to change people, because changing people is always a higher risk. You don't know what you will find on the market. It's always a kind of a secret in it if somebody starts. And if there is a chance to develop people and to bring them on the track you really want to have them, I think this creates on one hand loyalty, it shows trust. But I think what's really necessary is to have an open discussion with people as well, to have a plan which is developed together and to really bring them to the target. And I think you need their full commitment as well. So it needs to be an open and transparent approach. But in days like this, as it's only a shortage of nearly 100,000 people in the German-speaking countries, so if it comes to IT, I think you are not in the luxury situation that you can easily change people if you like. So anyhow, I think it's important that you try to solve it on all the existing levels. So I think it needs a mix of developing and maybe exchanging people if it's not working. But I think the best way is to develop if possible. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Then now more questions. So do you have any recommendations on how to build and lead a fully virtual development team? Who would like to say a few words on this topic? Michael,
I can
please.
say something. I've done that a few times. Virtual development team. So like I said, I mean, most development teams that I have led, and also people I've talked to that lead development teams right now, they are kind of happy because developers seem to be very productive and working good in a very good way, even if at home. Although of course it cannot go on forever because at some point they want to see themselves, and it's fine, right? But so the most productive thing to do is obviously to have a chat system. We use Slack. You can use Microsoft Teams or whatever, but something that is easy to use and it's company-wide. If best case scenario, maybe you want to use ChatGrape or whatever, but make sure they have a space where they communicate. They don't always have to figure out, do we use WhatsApp today or, so I guess nobody has this issue. That's important. And then number 2 is to have stand-ups. And stand-ups are done virtually now, right? You have a one room that is always open for developers. So what we did is basically we said, okay, per development team, of course, right? If you have multiple teams, each team has a room and it's always open. So the stand-up happens always in the same room. It's always the same link. Any kind of other meetings happen there. People, you will be surprised how often people meet each other at random in this room because it's always open, right? And you're also here. I wanted to ask you this and that. So don't open new rooms all the time. Keep one room open forever, right? People can go in and out. You can do this great with Zoom, for example. You have one room, a recurring event. It's always the same link. And this way, somehow it worked wonders, really. You found developers there, hours and hours talking to each other, but they didn't make a meeting. They just found themselves in this room. So it makes it much easier to get together instead of having to create an event, So I'm just saying, remove all the hurdles you can. And also, make sure that what we did also is that we meet at the office once a week. so that we do see each other and have some kind of, so that day is not very productive, to be honest. They spend a lot of time going for a smoke or drinking a coffee, to be honest, but it's still important for this, you know, human part of us. So those three things together, I think they help already a lot, and it's not really hard to do either.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks a lot. So there is another question. Would you run paid ads on LinkedIn, Facebook, etc., instead of dedicated solutions if they are targeted properly? Any experiences?
So I've done paid ads before. I think it's good for brand awareness at some point, but I wouldn't say that that you get so many people out of it. So can't really say that I fully recommend it. But yeah, I didn't use it for that. I didn't use it that intensively because it's always like also very expensive.
Thank you. Then another question, apart from LinkedIn, is there a website where one can recruit people specialized in AI, IoT, VR, robotics after seeing their CVs as video files? Any ideas? Or any other ways?
I shouldn't answer this question.
Yeah, I mean, you can use, we are developers, right? They will find developers for you, I guess, right? I'm just saying.
Michael, thanks.
Perfect.
Michael, thanks. I didn't want to be too pushy, but it works, yeah.
So We Are Developers is a good website that we recommend. Okay, so do we have more questions? Did I mention all? From the speakers, would you like, you have questions?
I would be happy that we keep in touch with the speakers, with you, and I just want to add something for developers. Our experience is that knowledge to learn. For instance, if you go to the university and you will learn different program languages, at the end you are formatted from these programs, yeah? And in our school of 42 people are looking for contents in the internet, in MOOC, in OpenMIT, etc., and they ask also each other in a network. And that means that they learn always to start from scratch and go on, even if they have to change their work or to change the job. I don't know if I am clear enough about that. Do you understand me? Yes? It is a little bit provocative, but we are working, for instance, with Volkswagen, and they say that education and training is now short in front of a big disruption. And the point is that when you are working as developer on a project, you want and you need additionally content and knowledge. If you wait for the next semester where it will be taught, or you go to a seminary and it lasts 3 months, for instance, then your motivation is not so strong than if you learn to learn. And if you have a question, the best motivation is that you find the answer on the same day or the same week. And I think that the classical way of learning is still is not rapidly enough for the exponential technologies. I mean, we are in a very fascinating time, and we have to adapt very quickly to new technologies or new programs. So it's important to learn how to learn and how to find the right skills that you need to solve a project or a challenge.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for your speeches and this really inspiring discussion. I hope you could gain new insights on this topic. I did for sure. Have a great day and fun with your next workshop. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good day.